Welcome everyone to our demo today of Prospero Financial Reporting, Budgeting, and Analysis. I want to start off today's session with a little bit about our company, the MSX Group. We started this company back in 2009. All of us that started the company were originally with Microsoft, and while we were with Microsoft, we were handling the services, training classes, and support for the Microsoft Financial Reporting and Budgeting Solutions, namely Management Reporter, Microsoft Forecaster, and Microsoft FRX. We did that, and we still do those products now, but pretty quickly into organizing our company, we started building our own version of those products, Prospero. So we built Prospero as an all-in-one software replacement for those three products, Management Reporter, FRX, and Forecaster. So you can do all of your financial reporting and all of your budgeting in a single application. If you do need to contact me after today's session, email is the best way to get in touch with me. I have that at the bottom right of my screen, noah.moseley at msxgroup.com. Just to make sure everyone has a complete understanding about what Prospero does for you. Prospero is a financial reporting and budgeting solution allowing organizations to quickly and accurately generate their financial statements and budgets or forecasts in one easy-to-use program. Pretty straightforward there, easy to have a feel for what this application does for you. Financial reporting, you can use Prospero for all of your financial statements, your income statements, balance sheet statements, cash flow statements, trial balance statements, and any other kind of supporting schedule that you want to pull together from your GL data. And we say GL data, but we can also import other data as well. So if you are keeping, say, statistical data in an Excel file, we can bring that into Prospero's SQL database and use that in reporting as well. Prospero also handles all of your budgeting and forecasting needs. Easy input screens, rows and columns, spreadsheet style user input screens to handle as many versions of your budget inputs as you need to. We have interactive charts and graphs inside Prospero. So any report that you create inside Prospero, you can also view that data, not just numerically, but also in charts and graphs. So if you're big on that at your organization, easy to handle that with any of the data we have inside Prospero. And these are interactive charts and graphs, so they're not just static pictures of the data. You can actually drill down through these charts and graphs and see the next layer of detail and analyze that data further down the drill down order. And speaking of drill down, for all of your financial reports that we have inside Prospero, you have the drill down options to the account level detail pages and to the transaction level detail pages. You don't have to drill down to these pages if you don't need those, but they are available so that all of your report viewers can just drill down to those details. They don't have to come back to you and ask for more details. It's right there in the report drill down pages. They don't even have to go back into the general ledger. It's right there inside Prospero waiting for them. And if we have users on the phone with us who are currently users of Management Reporter, FRX, and Forecaster, we do have migration options for you. So we can copy the majority of your report definitions, your row definitions, columns, trees, and the budget setup from Forecaster over to Prospero, so you do not have to start from scratch. So a huge time saver and money saver when you let us migrate that data from these existing legacy products over to Prospero. Few more bullet points I want to mention for you. When we start off, I'm going to look at the budget input screens inside Prospero. They are rows and columns like spreadsheet style input screens. But I want to point out that these are not Excel based input screens. These are all inside Prospero. So even though it has the look and feel of a spreadsheet or Excel spreadsheets, it's purpose built for budgeting inside Prospero. Prospero has consolidated security, so all of your users, when they log into Prospero, you will have told Prospero what companies they can access, what departments, account numbers, what reports they can get to, what input screens they can get to. And you don't have to duplicate that from the reporting system and do it again in the budgeting system. It's all done in one place inside a single application for Prospero. For implementations of Prospero, you have several options. So you can have a local installation of Prospero on your local desktop, on your local server, SQL Server machine, so everything is in-house. We can also deploy Prospero via the cloud or a hybrid of those two approaches. So if you want to just access everything, a SQL database and IIS and the web pages and the application all from the cloud, we have that option for you as well. We have subscription-based pricing available. If you don't want to purchase the entire package at one time, we have those options for pricing. And even though Prospero does reporting and budgeting all in a single application, you can purchase those separately. So if you just need budgeting, you can buy that separate from reporting. Same way, if you just need reporting, just buy that piece, and that way you can always add on the other option later. So I'm going to take us over into Prospero. I'm going to start off with a little bit about the navigation of Prospero, and then we'll go into budgeting and then into reporting. If you have questions, type those into that GoToWebinar control panel. I'll try to catch those as I go through the demonstration. So on my screen, I am looking at the quick launch window for Prospero. This is the main navigation pane for your end users. I've got a section on the left-hand side for reports and charts. This whole section has different tiles that represent different individual reports or charts and graphs that your user can run here. Right beside this panel, I've got a panel for report collections. And report collections inside Prospero are a group of reports that you can run all at one time. So I can have one group, like our month-end report collection here, that might have an income statement, a balance sheet statement, cash flow, trial balance statements, all in one collection, and they all run at one time. So an easy way to group reports. You don't have to go to each one, open them up separately, run that one, close it, go to the next one. You can put them all in one collection, have them all run at one time. Just to the right of that is our section for input. I've got a few options available, 3 tiles here. I've got our budget input for 2022, a forecast input probably from last year, and a weekly forecast. I'm just going to look at the budget input for 2022 when I'm doing this demo here. And then on the right-hand side, some tiles for quick links inside the application and reaching out to other sites like our message boards and stuff like our website and sending messages to users inside Prospero. Now, the quick launch is a great way for your end users to come in here, click one of these tiles one time to run reports or open up input screens or report collections to process. There are several other navigation areas for Prospero. So we'll mention the ribbon at the top of the window here. So this has easy options for you to do many of the different features inside Prospero. There's also a main navigation panel on the left-hand side, which I've currently gotten it's hidden on the left-hand side. I can see there's a arrow right here. If I click that arrow, it'll bring that panel out for me. Now, this panel is the main navigation inside Prospero, and I've got buttons at the bottom left for all the different areas inside Prospero. All of my reports, and if I click that one time, all the report definitions are displayed at the top of the screen here. Same thing for all of our line sets. Then they're displayed at the top of the list here. Same thing for our column sets, reporting trees, report collections, and all the other areas inside Prospero. So this left-hand navigation pane has access to everything you would need inside Prospero. I typically do hide that panel because it gives me more room for working with any of my definitions or any of my reports or any of my input screens. Now I'm going to hide it again for this first piece here, and I'm going to take us to our input screen for our 2022 budget. So to access that, I've got a tile right here for budget input 2022. Just click that one time. This is what your end user would be doing here. And this will bring up the prompt window to ask this user what they want to budget for. So I want to ask what company I want to budget for, what location, what department, and I've got the value field for each one of these. If I know these values, I can just type these in. And if you do not know these, you can just use the lookup button right beside it. And as a quick look at the lookup options here, if I click this button once, I can see my pop-up window. It's a tree view of all of my companies. So I've got 4 companies in this demo database. I've got the US company, Europe, Canada, and Eliminations. I also have an all company at the top. They all get rolled together and summarized. So I can budget for anything here that I've got available. And if your end user should only have access to the U.S. company, then they will not have access to Europe, Canada, or eliminations. So when we set up security inside Prospero, this controls what companies this user can access, as well as the other options for locations and departments. Now I'm going to pick location 4100, which is our Denver services location, and our department 100 for administration. These have lookup buttons as well, and I want to mention, just looked at the lookup for company. Let me look at the lookup for location, because for company, I just had one roll up for all my companies. But we do have some different options for any of these segments in your general ledger. So I will just go back to the top here, collapse some of these. So looking at my list of trees for locations. Now, I have the all tree for all my locations. This will summarize any location I've got that would have been copied in from my general ledger, or I've just added here into Prospero for budgeting. Anything that you add in your general ledger gets automatically copied here if you buy the reporting integration, and would automatically show up under the all locations option. Same thing for all departments, all companies, all accounts. It would automatically populate in the all tree here. Now, I do have the options to add additional summary trees for any of my companies or segments, and I've done that here for location. I can see that I've got one that says total company by region. So if I expand that, I can run a report for any level in this tree for the whole company by region, just by the East region, South, West, or Midwest. So it's easy for me to reference any of these different sections or summaries of these roll-up trees when I'm running reports. I'll look at these more when we get into the reporting side of Prospero. So for input, I've got company 1, Denver services for location, and administration for department. When I click OK, that will take me to our input screen for the 2022 budget. Now, a little bit about the screen. I've got a lot of numbers here, a lot of columns, a lot of rows. There are 3 tabs for this input screen. I've got the main tab, which is what we're looking at currently. I've got the human resources tab, which we'll look at that in a minute for budgeting all of our payroll, wages, taxes, and benefits. And we'll look at the capital tab as well for budgeting new assets for this input screen. But let's talk about the main input screen to start off with. So for the main input screen, I can see I've got our monthly columns, January all the way over through December, and then year to date. I have even some columns for the prior year actuals and dollar variances and percent variances going across the page here. Now, when you set up your input screens, you decide what every column should represent. You may not care about looking at prior year actuals or any dollar variances or percent variances. You may not care about monthly columns. You may just want to budget by quarters. So when you set up this as an administrator, you decide what every column represents. You can have as few as 1 column of numbers, or you can have 24 columns or more. A lot of flexibility about when you're building that column definition. And on the left-hand side, I can see I've got a long list of account numbers going down the left-hand side with 4-digit main account numbers. When you set up the input screen as an administrator, you decide what accounts should show up. And that applies for any of your locations and departments. They could all share one common template, and you might just hide certain rows if there's 0 balances, say for actuals, for any particular location or department combination. Or you can have a completely separate line set definition for different departments. So when you set this up as an administrator, you can do one template that everybody shares, same list of accounts. Or you can have different line sets listing different accounts for different departments, kind of hard-coded approach. Now for the shading and the background, the colors here, I've got 2 rows at the very top. I can see right away what year this input screen is budgeting for, and we're on the second row and highlighted in yellow what company, department, and location I'm budgeting for currently. So I've got different sections here that are shaded. Like I've got my salary accounts that are shaded in gray. I can't change those directly on this input screen because those balances are coming from our human resources input screen. Same thing would apply for our depreciation expense. That would be coming from our capital tab. Those will be grayed out and locked. I do have several rows that are available for input. So your budget manager is going to come to any of these rows that are available for input. They can type in a balance. I'll just go right here for this 401k employee contribution, put in $5,000. Just press enter. That puts that in that one cell and also updates any other columns or rows that need those values and calculations. Now I can also take that $5,000 and highlight several rows to the right. Use Control R on the keyboard as a shortcut key command to copy that over to the columns to the right. So easy data input for your budget manager to go through the process, typing in balances, copying balances across the page here. There's also two extra options for this main input screen for them to add details here. We've got annotations and we've got line item details. Let me start off with annotations, and that's a way of adding notes to any row here you've got for input. So let me say that for this 401k employer contribution, if I have my cursor anywhere on that row, on the right hand side for this annotations pane, I have an add button at the bottom. I'll just click that add button there, and this will bring up the panel, the pop-up window, so I can type in additional notes here. And when I click OK, this will add it to that panel on the right for annotations. It'll show me the text that I just added. It'll also show me the user ID that added this note and the date and time it was added. It'll save this for this input screen. It'll be here when I leave and come back. And any other user that can access this input screen will also see this note. And they can also add their notes. So they can come in here, they'll see my note. They can click on that row one time, click the add button, and then add their notes here. And that will also add their note on the right hand side, and the date and time that was added and what user ID added that note. So a great way for your budget managers and the budget reviewers and anybody else who can access this input screen to add their notes to this page. Because a lot of times budget input users will not just want to just put a balance, they'll just want a little bit extra room for adding a little bit extra information for you. Now, when I added that note, it added the text and all the details on the right-hand side in the annotations pane. It also added a blue square on the left of that row. So on the left-hand side here, I see that blue square. And if I put my cursor over that blue square, it pops up, shows me the last note that was added. So you can also see right away that I've got several rows here that all have notes added. They all have the blue squares on that left-hand margin. So a great way to add some information there for your budget input users. Another way to add information during the budget process would be line item details. So instead of just typing in balances on one row, I can look at my advertising row here. I can see on the left-hand side, I've got a triangle, a little marker on that row on the left-hand side that lets me know this row is not just individual balances typed into the monthly columns here. There's actually line item details that add up to this total. So I can see that detail on this advertising row just by double-clicking anywhere on this row. And that will expand that row and show me in green all of the additional rows of line item details that my budget managers have added for that additional detail. They've added a row for print publications, online ads, television, magazines, Super Bowl ads, local newspaper, and all those corresponding balances in all the different months. So a lot more flexibility for them to add additional rows of detail for any row here that's available for input. They can add as many rows here as they need to this account. They can type over and change the description for these new rows that are showing up in green. I just have like 7 rows here. You can add as many rows of line item detail to this account as you need to. And they do not even have to call the budget administrator to do this for them. They can do it themselves automatically, and it doesn't mess up consolidation or anything like that at all. It's built in to Prospero for the budget process for this main input screen. It works great, allowing them greater additional ways of adding more detail to their budget numbers. So two great ways there for your budget manager to add more information: the annotations pane on the right-hand side and the line item details for any available row here that's open for input. And if I want to close this row for advertising for line item detail, just double click anywhere on that row and it'll hide those rows that are in green there. Just summarizes all that data back up to that one advertising row. Now, before I go into human resources and capital, let me also mention that your budget managers, when they go through the budget process, they'll open up this screen. They'll click Save to save any of their changes here. And if they are responsible for more than one location or more than one department, it's easy for them to switch from one to the other. So I just have the option at the top that says Reopen Input. And that will let me select, I'll bring up my pop-up box with my different prompts. And let's say instead of administration, I want to look at the sales department. So I'll just click on 200 for sales. Okay, to open up this input screen. It'll open up in a new tab for me at the top. And this new tab will be, since this is for a different department, it could be the same list of accounts, but the one I opened up is going to be for a completely new set of accounts, and so with a different set of calculations as well. So this is for our sales department. I still have the main tab, human resources tab up top, and capital, but you can in the same columns. But I can see that on the left-hand side, I've got a completely different list of accounts, and a lot of these have statistical balance rows that are being used in calculations. So I've got a row for units for each month, and right below that, the unit pricing per month, and that is used to calculate our dollars for our different products. So this input screen here, a different department is using a different line set, which is a separate list of accounts and a whole separate list of calculations. So easy for them to go from one to the next, have a completely different input screen between these departments. We'll jump back over that first input screen for us for our original input screen for the main tab. And if you have any questions about the main input for Prospero, let me know. Type those into that GoToWebinar control panel for questions or the chat. And I'll be glad to take those questions now. And I'll also take questions towards the end of the session as well. But my next item discussion will be for our other tabs for input. So we just talked about the main input tab here. We also have the tab for human resources. Now, human resources is an optional tab inside Prospero. You do not have to have human resources set up in the budget process, but it does help you a great deal in budgeting all of your payroll expenses for wages, taxes, and benefits. Looking at this tab here, I'm still in that first location department, which is Denver Services Administration. So all of these employees here, every row is a different employee on this input screen, or they're working in this location department combination. All these individual employees would have been imported from your payroll system. So easy import process. You just have your payroll system export to Excel, and we import that right from Excel into Prospero. All of your budget managers then come in here and make any changes to this information. Now that can make any changes to these existing employees as far as their pay grades, the hours they're working each month, their FTEs per month, their pay rate as an hourly rate or as a annual salary amount. And going to the right, there's several other columns that you can also allow for changes for your budget process for human resources. Things like pay changes throughout the year, we can handle those inside Prospero for each employee. Bonus amounts, we can also set up to handle commissions, overtime as well. Now, this input screen for human resources, every employee is an existing employee. Your budget managers can make changes to any of the rows here. They can also add new hires for next year as well. And all of this information is used to calculate the wages, taxes, and benefits for this particular location and department. Again, human resources is an optional input screen for Prospero, but it is a very popular one to add. Easy process to set it up and use inside Prospero. And security is also centered around human resources as well. So if you have users that should not have access to human resources, that's okay. You can still set it up, make it available for the users that should have access to HR. The ones that should not have access will not even see this tab at the top for human resources. They would just see the tab for main input. The same idea for security applies to the capital tab. The capital tab is optional. It's an easy setup process, and this page here would be intended for your new assets for next year's budget year. This tab would not even display for users who should not have access to capital, so you can set that up inside security in Prospero. Every row here is an individual asset that the budget manager would like to add next year, or a group of assets. We just record in here what is going to be the purchase date for these assets, when to start depreciation expense, how many in this group, the price per individual item, and all this information is used to post the cost to the cost account for these assets, and project the depreciation expense for these assets as well. Now, all this here on this page is intended for new assets. You would not typically see any of your existing assets on this page. It would just be for new assets for the new budget year. All of your existing assets, your fixed asset system would typically project depreciation expense for those existing assets, and would just import those balances into Prospero. Easy page to set up for capital budgeting, and it is optional. And you have security, so if you have users that should see capital and some should not, that's okay. The ones who should not have access will not even see the capital tab. Now, all the changes that your budget managers are making on these input screens, whenever they are finished with their changes, they'll just click the Save button to save their changes, and all this information gets saved back in Prospero's SQL database, the same database that everybody shares for budgeting and for financial reporting. It's also consolidated right away because we have reporting trees that summarizes all the balances for our companies, and it summarizes all the balances by locations and by department. And then as soon as they click Save, all this data is available for reporting immediately. And it's available right away for comparison to actuals, prior year budget, prior year's forecast, or anything else you want to compare these totals to. All just as soon as they click the Save button here at the top left. So a little bit extra about budgeting process here. I want to mention history at the top of the screen for us. So as an administrator or anybody who has access to this input screen, you do have access to check the history. Any changes here, this will show you any user IDs and the dates and times and the balances that they have changed to the budget process. So you have that tracking set up in Prospero. Easy to pull that information up for any of your users inside here. I am going to look at reporting next. Let me see if I have any questions that have come in for budgeting. Don't see anything in the question box or the chat box, but if you have anything, feel free to add those in that GoToWebinar control panel on the right-hand side there. And just a quick recap, we looked at the main input tab for budget input. We looked at the human resources input tab and the capital input tab. Main input also included the annotations pane on the right-hand side for any notes that someone has added to this input screen. And we also looked at line item details, and we used advertising to look at that example for line item details. So a lot of great features for budgeting inside here. Again, this is a spreadsheet style user interface. So if your users are currently budgeting in Excel or they're currently budgeting in Microsoft Forecaster, it's an easy transition. Rows and columns, easy for them to move over here. This is not Excel, even though it looks like Excel. This is all just right inside Prospero, a custom built application for financial reporting and budgeting. All right, I'm going to look at reporting next. So there may be some of you that you're You're not buying this for the budgeting piece. You're buying it just for the reporting application. That will let you integrate to your general ledger, pull in all of your accounts and transactions automatically and new accounts automatically, and run all of your financial statements, your income statements, balance sheet statements, cash flow statements, all those inside Prospero. So I'm going to jump back to the Quick Launch tab. And on the top left, I've got a tile that says Monthly Income Statement Actual to Budget Variance. I'm just going to click this tile one time to bring up the prompt window that will let me make a few changes before I actually start running this report. And there's a lot of different options for this window that pops up here. Just want to mention the few that I focus on mainly. The top left, I've got my prompt section, so I can select what company I want to run this report for. Company 1 is our U.S. company, what location, what department, and I'm going to run this for all locations and all departments. Again, I could do the lookup button for any of these, and I could run it for any of my summary levels in this location window here. So if I wanted to run it for just my Western locations, I can select this part of the reporting tree, and that would only pull back the balances from San Francisco, Seattle, and San Francisco sales. Okay, so you can run the reports for anything in these summary trees here for any of your segments and companies. So check your prompts at the top left. On the right hand side, I've got an option to change the year and the period I want to run this report for. And the other option that I want to point out at the bottom, right before I click OK, would be the option for output. So Workspace is the default output, which would open up this report in a new tab here on the screen. But I want to show you that you can also send this report out directly to the printer, directly to Excel, or directly to PDF. So if you're using Management Reporter, that's not an option for you right now. You have to actually run the report inside Management Reporter, look at it on the screen, and then you can print it or export it. But from here inside Prospero, you can do that directly, even before you even click OK to generate the report. There's also an option for published reports. I'll talk about that as well. That's our version of archiving reports or saving a static copy. All right, so I am just going to leave this like it is and click OK to actually run the report. This pulls back all my balances and opens up the report in a new tab for us. Now, I do have 4 tabs open currently. I can jump back between any of these 4 tabs at the top. I can jump back to the quick launch window. I still have my first budget input screen open. I also have my budget input screen open for my sales department. And then I have this tab open for the report. All right, so reporting inside Prospero. When you're building the reports inside Prospero, same way you build your input screens, every definition will have a column set telling Prospero what every column represents in the report. I've got 5 columns. I've got description on the left of this report, an actual column, budget column, dollar variance, and a percent variance column. And then every report or input screen you have will also have a line set telling it what every row represents. So I've got a line set that is detailing the revenue header row all the way through gross profit, and then all of my expenses all the way down the page here. All that's in our line set definition. Now, if you are looking at the report here on the screen, we have options for drill down. So you don't have to include drill down for the reports, but for this one we do. So if I want to see where all my balances are coming from, I can drill down. I can double click on any row here to drill down to the account level detail page. So let's say for our sales row, I'll double click anywhere on this row. This will open up the account level detail page on a new tab here. I can see right away all the different account numbers, locations, and department codes that all these balances are posted to. So easy to drill down and see exactly what segments and dimension codes all these dollars are coming from. I also have transaction level detail available for this report. So I can double click on any account row and get the transaction level details for these balances. So I'll double click on this first row for sales. This opens up a new tab for our transaction level details. Now, I did include a few extra columns for the transaction level details. That's on the right-hand side. I've got a column for our batch codes, our reference codes, and our source ID codes. So I added 3 extra columns for transaction level details. There are more transaction level detail columns that are available. It depends on your general ledger. They vary from one GL to the next. Like GP has, I think, almost around 20 different transaction level detail columns that we could add to these reports. So those are added in the column definition. They do not show up until I drill down to this transaction level page. But this is a great feature here that you can provide for your budget or your report users. They can see this information. They don't have to call you and ask you for batch numbers or reference codes or source IDs. It's all right here on the drill down page for transaction level details. Again, this all opened on a new tab here. I still have my account level detail page on this tab and the original report on this tab. So easy to jump back and forth between any of those tabs that are open. I'm going to close out of the transaction tab and the account level detail tab and back to the tab for reports. And the next topic I want to look at with you would be changing the drill down order for these reports. So when I double clicked on the sales row, I drill down to the account level detail pages first. But I can change that. If I want to summarize this drill down by any of my segments or dimensions, I can do that. If I want to change the sales so that when I drill down it's by location, is an easy step inside here. I've got an option at the top for change drill down order. I'll click that one time. This will bring up the current drill down order with account level detail at the very top here. Let's say I want to take location. I'll click and drag that to the top of this list. Click OK. And now when I double click on any of these rows, I won't go directly to the account level detail page. I'll go to a summary by location. So I can see all these balances and they all summarize by our locations. Miami services, San Francisco services, San Francisco sales, and Denver services. So an easy way to change that drill down order if you want to summarize this data and see how where it's coming from by segment or dimensions. I did this by location. I could have just the same done it by department, and you can do it by any of your segments or dimensions in your account mask. So that concept there. Switch back there. I'll close out of the sales tab. Is the option at the top for change drill down order. A great way to kind of analyze that data and get a big picture for the balance totals. That's something that you cannot do inside Management Reporter. It's something that you could do in FRX, and they kind of lost that when they switched from FRX to Management Reporter. We thought it was a great feature and wanted to bring it back and make it available for everybody. Another great feature that we've added here, something that is not really available inside Management Reporter or FRX or Forecaster, is looking at all this report data in a graphical display. So any report that you generate inside Prospero, you can see it in the numeric report format. But you can also just as easily change this into a pie chart. So I've got an option at the top that says Display as Chart. Click that one time. That takes this data from this income statement and puts it into a pie chart that I already told it when I built the report what type of pie chart I wanted to, what kind of chart or graph I wanted to display the data in. Now on the left hand side I've got my actuals, on the right hand side I've got my budget. I can see that this is by net revenue in blue and total expenses in red. If I put my cursor over the sections of the pie chart, it pops up, shows me what it is, net revenue, the dollar amount, 1.4 million, and the percentage of that total, 76%. Same thing for the red, which would be for total expenses, 360 in budget, and 44% of that total there. Now, the charts and graphs inside Prospero completely different than ones that you have inside Management Reporter. Management Reporter's charts and graphs are very static. You don't have a lot of options around changing the looks and feel or the analysis of that data, but here we do. So I can actually drill down the same way I did on the numeric report. I can double click and drill down on any section of the pie charts here. So if I go to total expenses and double click, this will drill down and show me all that data. On the right hand side, that I can see my menu, the blue for Prospero demo accounts, Miami services, San Francisco services, Seattle. So all these different locations are in the different sections of this pie chart. So easy to analyze this data, even in the graphical layouts here. Let me take you back a couple of screens here. And I am going to change the drill down order back to account drill down page first. I'll take us back to that pie chart. And I mentioned the drill down. We can see where we double click and drill down to the next level in this pie chart. I'm going to do it again for total expenses, but this time I'm going to be drilling down to the account level detail page. And this has a lot of accounts. So when I look at the menu on the right hand side, there's a long list of the account numbers that make up all the totals here. That's okay. I can summarize this data. So you're not just limited to this one screenshot of this pie data here. You can analyze that data. If I go to the top under options, there's a checkbox that says group small slices at the top left. I'll click that one time, and that will summarize all of the smaller slices into one. So anything right here on the right hand side in blue is anything that was less than 5% of the total. And if I wanted to say, show me, group everything that was less than 10%, I'll just go back to the top left, do the plus up here to move that over to 10. Now this blue section is anything less than 10%. The purple, that just shows me what was greater than 10%, which is all overtime. So a great way to analyze that data graphically and even manipulate that data in the charts and graphs to help you, analyze the information on this individual pie chart. Now I use a pie chart as example. You've got bar charts, column charts, all those different options when you set up your report and graph definitions. Okay, I'm back to my report page here. I've got about 15 minutes. I want to jump into another topic here about the definition of this report with you. So if you are going to be the person building reports and building input screens, I want to show you a little bit about the behind the scenes for that process. So this report definition, just like any report inside Prospero or your input screens, will have a column set and a line set in the definition. So if I want to see the line set, I'll go to the top left here and click on columns, and that will open up the column set for this report. Now, keep in mind, this whole time I've been doing all the screen changes, running reports, opening input screens, opening up the column set definitions. All that is all right here inside Prospero. It just opens up that new definition or new window on a new tab right here inside Prospero. So easy to jump in between here. If you think back to Management Reporter and FRX, you had the designer application where you build and run reports. You had the viewer where you would go to view report data, or the web browser view reports. We keep everything inside Prospero, so it's all right here, easy to access. The column definition, easy to pull this information together. We've got a type column here. I've got in column A our row description column, and then I've got in columns B and C our balance columns. I can see that for B, I've got actual balances for this column, the original budget right beside it. In column C, we use the words year and period as placeholders inside Prospero, so that I do not have to hard code the year or the period numbers to these definitions, so that I can reuse this from one year to the next. And I've also got my other columns for my calculated dollar variances and my calculated percent variances, and my 3 detail columns for the transaction level detail pages. So I've only got columns A through H filled in here. If you needed more columns, you can just add as many columns to the right here as you need to. So really flexible about how you have all these columns defined inside your reports and your input screens. You've got drop-down boxes to help you pick all your different options for these, and lookup buttons as well. Now we'll look at the line set with you next. And before I open up the line set, I want to show you in the report here that I've got in the line set everything from the revenue header row all the way through net revenue, cost of goods sold, gross profit, and then all my expenses. Now it's a long list here of all these different accounts on these separate rows. I do have in my line set everything from the revenue header down to the header for expenses on separate rows. So those are detailed on separate rows in the line set definition, but my expenses are done completely different. For my expenses, I've got one row that says total expenses, and I've told it in the line set to automatically expand, and above it, show me all the individual expense accounts that make up that balance. So a great way to build that to reduce maintenance. If I ever added a new expense account in my general ledger, I would not have to come back here to the line set and add a new row and add that new account, because of the way I've set up this section, it would automatically include it in that range. If it has a balance, it'll open up and show me that balance automatically. No additional maintenance. So a huge time saver over building these reports inside Prospero over, say, Management Reporter or FRX. So let's go to the top left here for lines, and I'll open the line set definition for this report. It's much smaller than what we have here displayed on the report page. So I do have my rows for the revenue header all the way down through the header for expenses. They're all hard-coded on separate rows. They're just mainly to show you the example that those are hard-coded, and they're different from how I handled the row for total expenses. Okay. So the row for total expenses, I've got one row. I'm using a summary set of expenses called EXPN. If I want to see what's in that definition, I'll do the lookup button for my natural account number. This will open up for us. I can see right away that I've got a summary for total expenses. If I open that up, it's a range of accounts from 6,000 through all the sevens. So if I ever added a new expense account in that range, it would automatically be included in that total for total expenses EXPN. I would not have to come back to the line set. I would not have to add any more rows here. It's all handled automatically. So if you are building reports from scratch, if you can utilize this option about using the summary references, use those by all means to help reduce maintenance. Now, if I did nothing else, that would just show me one row with a total expense balance. It would not automatically expand, but for this row for total expenses, I've got a column that says expand, and I've set it to show the individual accounts above this row. So easy step there to have that automatically expand and show me all the individual accounts right above this total row. These definitions, much shorter than you would have to have inside FRX or Management Reporter. In MR and FRX, you'd have to have a long list of hard-coded expense numbers. There's no option to automatically expand a row inside MR or FRX. So this right here, a great time saver for building reports and future maintenance. Now, as you go through the process of building reports inside Prospero, another great feature that is not available in those other products would be a preview option. So if I go to the top, there's a checkbox for preview. I'll check this box. At the bottom, this will show me a preview of how this might look inside of the report when I generate it. So you can see this preview window. You can see the formatting. You can see the dollar formats. I can see the percentage row with the 2 decimal places. So you have a feel for how this might look when you actually run the report. So that's an option that you do not have inside the legacy products from Microsoft. You actually have to build the report and run it, open it up in the other applications to actually see how it looks, and then go back to Report Designer and make your changes. So here, great little feature here for that preview window to show you a glimpse about how this formatting will look when you use it in a report definition. And we have this preview window available for the line set and for the column set as well. All right, let me take us back to the report here. One last topic I want to talk to you about before starting to wrap up the hour here with you. Publishing reports. We talked about exporting reports out to Excel, send them out to PDF or to the printer. You've also got the publish option inside Prospero. So I can publish any report that I generate here. And this is like archiving this copy of this report or saving this static copy so that I know on this date, these are the numbers that I had on this report. So it doesn't matter if I go back later and make a change in the general ledger. I will know by this published version what the numbers were. So I will just send this out to December because I ran this report for December. This will save this archived copy in Prospero's SQL database. And another great feature about the archived or published versions of these reports is that you also have that option on the right-hand side for annotations. So now, just like you did with the budget input screens, anybody who has access to this report, they can add notes to any row on this report. So if I've got to go and explain my high dollar variances from actual to budget, I just click one time anywhere on that row, click the add button to add my text. And that will add that comment to that row. It'll show up on the right-hand side under annotations. And it also adds a blue square on the left-hand side of that row, so I know that that row has a comment added to it. The next person opens this report, they'll also see that comment that I added. They can also add their comments to this report too. So a great feature for collaboration for all your different report consumers out there. Now, we have covered a lot of different topics as we've gone through Prospero for budgeting and for reporting. I'll be glad to answer any questions that if you have any of those in there for us. There's a lot of other bells and whistles inside Prospero that it's hard to fit everything in 1 hour for these sessions. Again, email is the best way if you need follow-up, noah.moseley@msxgroup.com. Be glad to tackle those in email. Let me jump back for one wrap-up slide with you. We talked about a lot of different features there under reporting and budgeting, all those options for drill down to account and transaction level details, changing the drill down order. We looked at the charts and graphs and drilling down through that data as well. We just looked at published reports. Report collections, didn't look at those, but that is where you could have several reports into one group of reports, have them all run at one time. We mentioned generating reports directly to Excel, directly to the printer, or PDF, even before you run the report. And all of our options for budgeting, main input screen. We talked about line item details, annotations. We looked at the account history, the detail tabs for human resources and capital, which both those are optional, but they do have an easy setup process and add a lot of flexibility for your budget process, and instant consolidation as soon as your budget managers click the save button. And on top of all this, if you are currently using Management Reporter, FRX, and Forecaster, don't forget we've got that option to copy in pretty much the majority of all of your report definitions and your budget setup from those applications over to Prospero, so you don't have to start from scratch. I'll save you a ton of money and time in doing that process. So I hope everybody has had a good time today with me doing a demo of Prospero. Glad you could join me. I am going to wrap it up for the afternoon, see if we have any questions that come in before I do. Again, my name is Noah Moseley. My email is noah.moseley@msxgroup.com. Hope to be talking to you all again soon. I see some familiar names out there like Dennis. So good to see you on the call today. And I am going to, thank you. Glad you could join me. Let everybody have a good rest of the afternoon and hope to talk to you again soon. Thanks, everybody.